Wish you could fish more? Anywhere, anytime. RODgeeks, a St. Croix Rods partner, has developed a 42-inch one-piece travel rod designed and built with the same technology found in St. Croix rods. This travel rod is offered as a kit that comes with the RG42 rod, spinning reel, fishing line, pliers, and tackle tray. All in a case with space for your wallet, phone, and fishing license. Just grab and go. Perfect to keep in your pickup, car, or RV. This shorty performs much like a longer rod, but is compact enough for easy storage and for on-the-go use. Make this the summer you fish more. RODgeeks.com. Guidefitter is the industry network for professional outdoor guides and outfitters, the trusted destination for consumers seeking and sharing guided hunting and fishing experiences of a lifetime, and the enterprise influencer marketing platform for outdoor brands. Guidefitter and its members represent the pulse of the guided hunting and fishing industry. Guidefitter's outdoor partners provide discounts to select types of outdoor professionals, including game wardens, members of the military, guides, outfitters, and other outdoor professionals. Over 145 brand partners and counting. Gear across many categories, including packs, footwear, clothing, flashlights, knives, optics, even firearms and ammo. For more information, go to guidefitter.com/wardenswatch. That's Wardens Watch, all one word. I'm Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and I'm a member of Guidefitter. This podcast is brought to you by Maine Operation Game Thief. Please join me, Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and other Game Wardens on our adventures protecting wildlife, saving lives, and having fun, all while serving the public and the natural resources of our planet. Listen to the tales and experiences of those who work in the outdoors while being entertained with stories about encounters with poachers, wildlife investigation, murder investigation, near-death experiences, search and rescue missions, wildlife interactions from game wardens around the country and around the world. When I retired, I realized I couldn't let go of that legacy, but rather wanted to share the passion, the commitment, and the stories of those men and women that call themselves game wardens. This is Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and this is Warden's Watch. Episode 25, Jim Cyrs, Conservation Officer, Northwoods Law Star, New Hampshire Game Warden, Snowologist. And I'm going to frame this guy for you guys. Jim and I record this podcast in his cruiser heading down to the Law Enforcement Memorial. So you can hear the pounding rain that is going on, the road noise. Our conversation goes on through all of this noise, but it puts you guys in the cruiser with us, going to probably one of the most hallowed days of the law enforcement year to honor our fallen. So there's a little emotion in it for me. If you are honored to have personally known somebody that's name is on that wall, it takes on a whole new experience for you. And it's a tough day. It's a day you don't want to forget. It's a day that you want to honor your brothers and sisters who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So I jumped in with Jim this day, going down to the Law Enforcement Memorial, and I said, hey, let's do a podcast on the way. And it was noisy. He's got an F-250 he's driving, and it is pounding rain as we drive. But as we get there, it lightens up, the rain stops, the sun comes out, and it is the perfect May Law Enforcement Memorial Day to honor our fallen. But on our way down there, Jim and I kind of go through his history, kind of talk about some cases, kind of talk about his education, which I find fascinating. You know, I kind of bust his chops saying he's a snowologist, but snow science was his course of study. And that is pretty interesting and so relevant to northern New Hampshire, doing search and rescue in the White Mountains, having that buy-in to understand, to be able to converse with those people that do the avalanches, the U.S. Forest Service that actually has snow rangers on, and they assess avalanche danger and post it and put it out there to let everybody know to save lives so you're not recreating in the wrong spot. And if you're recreating in that spot, you know the dangers, you know where to be. And Jim understands all the snow science. Pretty cool stuff. But I always want to let you know where we're doing it, what we're doing it. It is like wintertime, and I want to bring the Snowology into it. But this wasn't done in the winter. It was on the way to the Law Enforcement Memorial. I'm tying two different things in here. May hits again, you're going to hear more about the Law Enforcement Memorial because it's very near and dear to my heart because I do have friends on that wall that made that ultimate sacrifice. And it hurts me every time I see the news and I see another officer that has made that ultimate sacrifice. And it should hurt you too because they are out there to protect the citizens of their countries, their territories, whether a game warden, a police officer, a fireman. Those people, they're first responders, are out there for your benefit. And when they die, it should hurt you. You should feel that twinge in you, just like I do. I shed a tear almost every time I see one of our officers has fallen, and for senseless things too. So that's the mind frame as we go down and we talk with Jim. But it doesn't start that way. You're going to hear road noise, you're going to hear rain, and just remember, it just sparked into an ultimate day. Please enjoy episode 25. I was going to plug some of my sponsors, but I'll save that for next time because, to be honest with you, I just want you to focus on the sacrifice, the game wardens, that all law enforcement, police, all those sacrifice, Border Patrol, Customs, all these guys put on the line for the safety of the citizens of the United States. And if you're in Canada, you certainly have officers doing the same. The game wardens, the Swiss Army knife of law enforcement. Our first job is public safety. Our second job is to protect our resources so you can enjoy them, so they don't fade away, so we can see those in the future. So I'm riding down with Jim Cyrs today, the Law Enforcement Memorial, New Hampshire's Law Enforcement Memorial to honor our fallen. And this kind of feels like deja vu, huh, Jim?
Yeah,
because we've done this before, and Wayne didn't know his equipment, and to be honest with you, I'm still learning my equipment, so
that's right.
This might be a take 3, for God's sakes.
It might be.
well, let's hope it isn't. So the cool thing is, when I got in the truck this morning, is I couldn't close the back door because of that metal detector.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And that, right off, I'm like, so why do you get the metal detector?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So why do you have the metal detector?
Well, I'm working a case right now with a bear that was dumped that had pretty good suspicions it was shot, but that definitely confirmed it. So we have a few leads on it. And, keep in mind, too, that right now it's May 17th.
So why would someone shoot a bear on May 17th?
Well, nearest I could imagine is probably somebody got sick of it being around their house. It's probably someone that didn't pick up their trash or left their bird feeders out, or a neighbor was doing the same thing. And
yeah, because it could be not the guy's fault or the girl's fault, I guess we could say.
Yeah,
there's some girls in the North Country that would shoot a bear without hesitation.
This is true.
And then dump it. So.
That's right.
So I don't want to speculate it's a guy, but it's probably a guy.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I mean,
but it may not even be his fault. His neighbors could have been feeding bears, creating a problem, because we see that too often.
This is true.
I always thought we should stock grizzly bears or brown bears.
Yeah, we could. It might
think about that. A few grizzly incidents, brown bear incidents. Would people take care of their garbage, you think?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you'd be missing a few people, and because it's usually not a bear problem; it's a people problem.
Oh, pretty much every time.
And I've been there. I've had bear problems before.
Yeah.
Glenn Lucas, Sergeant Lucas now, I remember when he was at my house getting done dinner and he goes outside. He's like, hey, Sarge, I got a problem. I'm like, what's that? I got 2 problems, actually, he says. He goes, actually, I don't have 2 problems. I have a problem and you have a problem. So my first problem is I locked my keys in my truck. I'm like, okay, we can fix that. Yeah. And the second problem is you have a bear in your dumpster. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, nope. So cracker shells we go and bind up the dumpster. So anyways, this big bear?
It's pretty good size to it. It's starting to decompose, so was
this a nasty autopsy?
A little bit. It hasn't really entirely begun yet, so it's only gotten worse. It's a busy. We're always busy, but it's a busy time of year, so I actually went there after doing a search at about 10 to 11 o'clock at night to look it over, since I hadn't had any time the previous 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so I really wanted to get there and do that work because it's important, to me, because it's in my patrol, but also because it's quite a big violation. I mean, it could be up to, in reality, it's a misdemeanor. So, at least one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something I wanted to at least start on. I didn't want to have it just sitting around because I was about to go on some days off.
So you came from a search and rescue, and then you rolled out there 10, 11 at night with a headlamp and metal detector and trying to do a necropsy on this bear to find out what killed it.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly.
Find a bullet hole?
Not yet, but it looks like there was one. Kind of like, I think I could see it on the left side of the bear, right near the shoulder.
So we're just beginning the investigation.
Really, yeah. But it's something that I didn't want to pass off to the other guys because it's my area. Plus, I wanted to get a head start on it too, because as we know, the longer you wait to collect information, things like that, the harder it can be to make a case.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you get search and rescues going on every day, it's difficult to keep up with that stuff.
It is.
I get it. And and this time of the spring of the year, you've had some search and rescues, one right after another, huh? Yeah.
It keeps going. I mean, springtime, we get it anyway every year a little bit, but this year it seems like it's kind of been coming hard and fast. It makes you wonder what's in store for us.
Yeah, and I don't think people process it because as we're driving down the road, you look, there's no snow here. It looks like you get a nice sunny day and people want to get out. I get it. You go take any elevation, what are you running into?
Yeah, you run into a lot of snow.
A lot of snow.
You're figured this year, it's been record snowfall in a lot of locations. And we never really had a real melt out. It's up in the Androscoggin River Valley. I mean, we had snow starting the first week of October, and it didn't really melt out in the valleys until probably a month ago. Pretty much mid-April. And there's still some piles left in places. So up high, there's probably 5, 6, 7 feet of snow on the ridges, depending on where you are. And we're fast approaching June.
Think we'll have snow in July?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, there'll be some patches in places like in the deep ravines where it holds the cold air.
Yeah.
Some of the high locations too.
I've seen that before on Mount Washington, and I've seen it snow in July.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. We were on a rescue, and it caught for a few minutes and snowed on us. And I forget the date. It was July. I couldn't believe it. Huntington's Ravine, doing a search and rescue, probably one of the hardest ones I ever did, and it went snowed. I was like, really? And you like snow, don't you?
I do, but there is a limit.
There is a limit.
There is a limit.
Don't you have like a degree in snowology?
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It might sound.
What's the technical name for that?
Technical name is snow science, but snow
science.
Snowology.
That doesn't sound technical at all.
It doesn't. No, it's kind
Snowology actually sounds better.
It really does. It sounds like an actual science. Snow science sounds like something that you give your parents as an excuse to go to college out west.
Yeah.
And when in reality you're just skiing. But,
thank goodness, it says in our thing, related fields, and
that's
apparently
right.
Snow science is a related field with us. So.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's affecting you in search and rescue for sure.
That's right.
I'm sure you could tell us the depths and how much moisture it's holding and what we can expect I can't even say that name.
Hydrologically speaking?
Yeah, hydrologically speaking. So that's water for everybody that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Draining. But that's all kind of the study of snow, right?
It's kind of all the study of snow right there. And
does your degree say snow science on it?
It actually says snow geography and GIS.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like...
That sounds better. They could have put snow science on it.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, it could have...
I'm glad they didn't.
I'm glad they didn't either. It's, because it's a division of earth sciences, so a lot of math and hard sciences, but we did a lot of mountain geography, and we actually had a high-level class called Biogeography. Starts paralleling a little bit of the fish and game world. I kind of, because I grew up in northern New Hampshire, and I heard about this when one of the representatives for Montana State came to our school my senior year, and I was sold on it, didn't put in for anything else when I was originally planning on going for a fish and wildlife biology degree somewhere, and just went for it and didn't look back, and still ended up where I kind of wanted to be anyway. So it's kind of funny that way.
Definitely kind of funny that way.
Yeah.
Huh. That's neat how that all rolls and how we find our spot. To come around back around, did you really want to be a snow science or? Yeah,
I got really into it. It was something I was pursuing a lot because I wanted to be a conservation officer since I was a little kid. But I really got into the snow science field and wanted to get into snow ranger work and things like that, like forecasting for avalanche danger, but it just wasn't panning out. It's
not a lot of jobs out there to do that, is there?
No, not really. No. It's pretty tight. If you get into it, it's good, but it's a little bit difficult to get into it. And plus, when I was in school, some of the minimum requirements changed from a bachelor's to a master's, and that's a big step.
Wow. Yeah.
So I ended up moving back home, working on Mount Washington as a park ranger for a while, and working as a ski patroller.
And that's a pretty awesome job.
Oh yeah,
working on Mount Washington, right?
Yeah, that was another dream job besides this one. That's for sure. That was great. Working with a lot of people. It's definitely 100% in the tourism industry,
and you got to stay up and sleep up there.
Oh yeah. Live there 4 days a week. Come down and have a few days off and see the world's worst weather. Literally,
What's the fastest wind speed you saw up there personally?
Personally, it was I think it's 139.5 or 0.8. It was during Hurricane Sandy.
Wow.
In 2012.
Did you try to step out in it?
I was outside in like 120.
Yeah.
I think was a gust, but I don't think I was hitting the brunt force of it. And I can tell you don't want to be very far from a building or shelter in that kind of weather. And luckily, because it blows so hard up there, there's not much stuff flying around, but you still want to be very safe and careful when you do that kind of stuff. It's something that you don't want to be hiking in, and you wouldn't be able to hike in. I can promise you that.
Right. And I haven't been up there in that speed, but I've been up in 60s, 70s, and gusting. Who knows what it was gusting? But I always Nick, that was the cameraman for Northwoods Law up there one day. I was just about to lose my feet, and I was turning around to talk to him as he lost his. And I will say he did a great job of holding the camera. He balled up and rolled with the camera to save the camera. But
that's pretty good.
But I got to see him lose his feet and go tumbling. Yeah. So, which was it's about time to go in. So, and that was probably a good gust. Who knows what it was, but it was pretty windy. The other thing I always forget to tell people if they haven't been up there. I mean, you guys usually know, don't open two doors at once in a cruiser. So, because it blows all the paperwork out.
Everything gets sucked right out like a vacuum.
Yep, I think I did that with Nick, too. As he opened up the door, I'm like, no! And as it sucked every piece of paperwork I had out, and gone.
Gone.
And he just looks at me, he goes, wow. And it was wild to see 200 pieces of paper go flying past you at 70 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So, because it creates that wind tunnel. So it was
just sucks it right through.
Yeah. So I always try to tell people if they're new, don't open two doors at once. Just, it doesn't work. So
it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. And I know I used to call you all the time on top of Mount Washington because you were healthy and willing to do search and rescue.
Oh, yeah.
We're doing from the top worked out pretty good numerous times, huh?
It did. Yeah, definitely. It helped out. You'd be close to things, and I can tell you there's definitely a few, I think of a few situations where I think if we weren't able to do that or there wasn't somebody that was up there to go down, I think it could have survivability on some of these rescues would have been slim to none.
Oh, when you're there and you can respond, and I can pick up a phone and ask you to do that, was priceless.
Yeah,
priceless.
It
Absolutely. I'm sure you guys saved lives. So you and Mike Pelchik, Mountain Mike, what an awesome guy! What a great job he did through his career. What an asset! And I'm going to do a podcast with Mike. I hope he'll come on the show because. Yeah, because he's just, I think every game warden, Doug used to rely on his expertise. I relied on his expertise. I'm sure, Lieutenant Ober's relying on his expertise because you pick up the phone and you run stuff by him and he just knows the presidential so well. Mm-hmm. And has been involved with the Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue Team for so long that he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, for forever. I mean, he would... talking to him, because I worked with him. He was my boss as a manager of the state park up there for the 4 summers I worked there. And, I think he's been doing rescue for, I might be wrong, but I feel like it's at least 35 years or more now. I mean, he started getting into it when Paul Doherty was in District 1. Like, you know, kind of one of those legends. And he, like, I think he picked up a lot of stuff from him. He'd just show up. I think it was a story, but you'll get that, I think, in the podcast when you talk to Mike.
Yeah.
Because he'll have plenty of stories. He's seen a lot.
Oh, he certainly has. I'm looking forward to that one because, you know, just the information. And, you know, as a lieutenant, you got to take all the information you can from every aspect and then evaluate it and then make decisions based on that. And you would be foolish not to talk to Mike Pelchek about a search and rescue operation and get his opinion. And most of the time I went with his opinion because it was probably the best one out there.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes maybe we attacked it from two different angles. I know I sent, you know, rescuers up different ways to see who would get there first and the troubles they would encounter along the way, you know, were different. We sent quite a few up along the ridge line in the wintertime. Mike would drive the Snowcat up with a create team, and off they'd go. So
good stuff up there.
Yeah. Anything particular story you remember Mount Washington that you can tell us? I mean, I remember just having dinner up there. I think I ate with you guys once on a search and rescue. You guys were all down in your little hole there in the basement of the thing, and you know that was a big deal up there. Was eating dinner.
Oh yeah,
that was an
huge
event.
That was quite a thing that we do, like at least once a week in our living quarters, because you'd have a full kitchen and everything like that. You had to bring your own food up. We would do kind of like a community dinner, and it was something that we would all partake in. Somebody would be responsible for bringing one thing or another, and that would be quite the get together. And if there's anybody around and we had food, it's, you know, share with them. Pretty much anybody that's going to be helping all the rescues, like any of the officers at the time. Like, hey, you want some food? We actually got done with this rescue before midnight. You want some? You know? And it's really, it's always been a sense of community up there. I mean, there's buildings been up there forever, but I can remember those are always fond memories. And then I can think of a few, it's one of those ones where you start talking about it, you can start thinking about all these different kinds of stories. But I can remember one of the crazier rescues I was on was an individual fell in Huntington Ravine and broke. He ended up falling, I think, probably like 60 or 70 feet on the rocks, and he broke both his arms and I think some fingers, and maybe even hit his face. And we saved his life and all that stuff. But it was it was kind of a rainy day in there, and not Huntington Ravine is not anything you want to mess with.
It's pretty much vertical.
Pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So that's a very crazy.
It's the most challenging trail in the White Mountains, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And in the EMC guide as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
It's serious business. I mean, it's like kind of low-grade rock climbing without ropes is the best way to put it. And so there's that kind of stuff, which is more sort of sobering memories, but then there's also really good ones.
Now, that guy, did you have to fly out?
Yeah, we carried him all the way down, and then the DART helicopter came. And
I hate carrying down through Huntington's Ravine.
Oh, God.
And for those, I mean, if you can Google pictures of Huntington's Ravine, that would be worthwhile, because it's a crazy place. There's boulders in there the size of Mack trucks that
huge.
You go under the trail over, and you carry this litter with this person that's been broken out, and it's just so exhausting.
And
it's wet. It's slippery. That July, it snowed on us, you know, and nobody had gear. I farmed all my gear out because nobody had. It was July. You didn't expect to eat a fleece. You didn't expect. It was miserable.
It's wild in there. You get any of our mountains, you know, you end up. It's where people end up getting in trouble is they go, oh well, it's 65 and sunny down here, so it must be the same up there. And they get up there and it's in the clouds, freezing rain, and 28 degrees and blowing 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's
world's worst weather.
Oh yeah, that's the truth.
And people laugh about that. I've had, you know, rescues where I've seen pictures in their phones and they're laughing about the signs of world's worst weather. And here I am, had to rescue them.
Exactly.
It's not a laughing matter. And as a snowologist, I mean, I've heard that there's like 3 different fronts that hit that general area. That's why it is the weather it is. So can you explain that to me as a scientist?
Yeah, sure. I'm no meteorologist on the summit, and but it's essentially like you got. I believe it's the way it's described is like 3 distinct jet streams that cross near or right over like the White Mountain, and we're not far from the ocean, which provides a lot of energy, and we're the highest thing for quite a long time, and its orientation, so very much north-south oriented. So you get these big kind of like air masses moving across some kind of open spaces, and it's almost the best way to describe it is it's like if you turned on your hose outside, the garden hose, and you put your thumb over it, the water all of a sudden goes way faster and shoots way farther. Your thumb is essentially Mount Washington and the presidential range in the middle of the jet stream, and not necessarily jet stream, but the airflow. So it condenses it really fast because it's pretty much climbing like 5,000 feet from the valley floor up in a very short distance. So that has to get through, so it has to speed up. It's kind of I believe it's the Venturi effect. I might get it corrected on that, but it's kind of like what is used in a carburetor.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like you narrow down the point, and then it makes it go faster.
That's basically why we don't have trees above 4,000 feet then.
Exactly.
Whereas in most places around the country, 4,000 footers aren't a big deal because you go out west and they got, 12,000 footers, right?
Exactly. So. A really good way I tried to describe it to people was, because I living in Montana for 6 years, you take here, like our tree line's about 3,700 feet or so, and we're just shy of the 45 degrees north. If you go out to the Rocky Mountains in about the same latitude north, tree line, I think, must be, it's got to be somewhere around like the 8,000 or 9,000 foot mark. And that just shows, I mean, granted, all mountains have bad weather, but ours is just that much more severe when we get it, that nothing can grow up there. I mean, the average over the long term up there is about 35 miles per hour on any given day. That's pretty much knocking over weak trees down here in the valley.
Yeah, no doubt.
But no, it's a crazy spot. I mean, but then I also, some of the more interesting stuff I can remember is sometimes it'd be like animals that also get up there that aren't usually up there. There's a lot of small animals that live there, but there's been moose spotted up there, and I saw a bear actually running across the summit one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. People have told me they've found beavers up there, and I've heard of them having to trap them out.
That was lost.
Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, very lost.
The beaver that climbed up. Yeah.
It's very much. It ran out of water and then didn't know where to go.
That was rabid.
Yeah, that's right. Probably. You won't get anywhere near that thing.
No. Speaking of weather, we're heading down to Law Enforcement Memorial, and it is pouring. So I don't know what exactly will be picked up in the podcast or not. I think it adds a little, realism to sitting in a cruiser every now and then. The radio chimes on. If anybody can hear that rain, it's raining down good. So.
It's pouring.
You talked about being a kid and wanting to be a game warden. Mm-hmm. How'd that come about?
I grew up kind of doing a lot of different things outside, hunting, fishing, a lot of hiking and skiing and everything like that. So I knew I wanted to do something outdoors, but obviously out of some of those pursuits, you see game wardens on a somewhat regular basis. Mm-hmm. And then the other side too is I have some family relation with Fish and Game. My grandfather was retired as a lieutenant in District 1, and just saw what kind of things I offered him. And as I got older, the more I was like, wow, this is kind of exactly what I'm looking for, is be a conservation officer in New Hampshire. Is kind of offers everything I'd like to be doing with a career.
Jim's talking about his grandfather, who was Bill Hastings. I certainly had the honor of meeting him when I certainly got into the patrol. wish I spent a little more time. Although when you're young and foolish, you forget about the history kind of thing. And, I wish I would have spent a lot more time actually with the Dohertys, the Hastings, when I arrived here to get to know them a little bit better than I did. But yeah, your grandfather was a mountain of a man. He was a huge man, big man. Mm-hmm. Is the mountain Hastings named after him? I know he's got a town forest named after him.
He's got that.
I always wondered at Hastings Mountain.
Oh yeah, no, it's I don't. Yeah, the mountain's not, but the family history goes back a ways in the Bethel area.
Okay.
So you got a lot. I believe
so it may be some family relation to the mountain.
Exactly, like Hastings Campground in Evans Notch. That used to be the town of Hastings.
Gotcha.
Like in the Wild River, which ended up being a logging town. So it doesn't exist anymore when it got logged out. It was all done.
Huh. Your family has roots in that area for hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, yeah.
Neat.
Yeah, been in Bethel since I think the early 1700s. Mm-hmm. It's it's a lengthy history, that's for sure. And but yeah, it's kind of one of those things they say you can remove someone from the mountains, but you can't remove the mountains from them. So you kind of end up getting dragged back all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And, maybe you can clarify this for me. Maybe because I always heard your grandfather held a record for carrying the most stuff up Mount Washington.
Yeah.
Can you shed a light on that?
Yeah, it's because he was a Marine. He had kind of before he became a conservation officer, he was a Marine. And then he ended up, when he came back, he worked for the observatory for a little bit on the summit. And he also worked for the AMC at Lakes of the Clouds hut. So Lakes of the Clouds is not too far below the summit, like a mile and a half. Supplies, they used to have to, they still do actually, carry the supplies to and from the shelter. Yeah, I haven't heard the exact weight, but I've heard many times that he has a good record with it. But I've also seen joke photographs from back in the kind of like early 50s, late 40s of him with a pack board with boxes stacked 7-8 feet above his head. But I heard that.
And that was a joke?
That was a joke, yeah.
Huh. I've seen him too, and I always thought it was true.
I thought that I've heard both things, so it's one thing I can't really track down, but I want to get those pictures and get a photocopy of them. Okay.
Yeah, because back in that day, who would have joked with that?
Right?
They would have had to stack that up and put it on his back.
Exactly.
And he would have had to been part of the joke.
Exactly.
And maybe he was. Your grandfather didn't strike me as a funny man. He struck me as a pretty serious guy.
Yeah, very, very stoic from what I remember as a child growing up. But it's funny because then you see there's some other. I've seen a few goofy photographs from AMC days, and you're like, you don't really think of that generation of, especially him, being kind of screwing around up there, and
right.
I guess he must have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess all of us do. Some of us have more tendency than others. But, yeah, I think every time, I met him, he just struck me as I think stoic is a perfect description of your grandfather. So, just calm, collective, serious. So not the joking type. Not
really. Yeah, very...
Not like that Rab Bennett that he used to chase around.
That's right.
So... Yeah, well, we'll see if Rob will come on this show and tell about his early days of being chased by the game warden Bill Hastings. So
that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so that's quite a legacy to have. I don't know how to bring this up, but I always remember your grandfather's funeral. So because we as a district carried him in his big oak casket out, and then we did a graveside too, Bethel area. It's off the North Side Road and. That cemetery?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Because that was...
Oh, yeah.
You were
I was, that was my senior year of high school. I just started my senior year. Actually, I believe that was the first or second day of school, I think, was the service.
Wow.
And but I remember it very clearly. I can remember Doug Grelinski's speech. Mm-hmm. He was a lieutenant at the time, and I mean, he grew up in my grandfather's patrol, so he was very familiar with him.
Yes.
Yeah, that was quite the showing. And at that point, he had been retired for 20 years I think maybe just over 20 years because he retired in the 80s. And but I remember that one that well, and it was quite the. Probably one of my biggest role models, and I wish he was still around. He'd be in his 90s, I believe, if he was still around now. If he was, I'd be talking to him about stuff.
Oh yeah,
because I'd really like to know, especially now being in uniform.
And I'm sure he'd be proud, very proud that you were New Hampshire conservation officer.
I'd like to think so. Yeah,
I'm sure he would have been.
It's and I always end up. It's funny because you mentioned him being kind of being stoic, and the thing that kind of strikes me the most is I've heard more stories about his exploits and situations involving him from other people than I'd ever heard from him. So that's what's kind of an interesting aspect to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, he wasn't one to toot his own horn, but
oh yeah,
I'm sure he could tell you how it was. So
oh yeah, I heard he was. Everyone describes him as just being a massive, very big man that, few words, but when he spoke, it meant something. It's kind of like when he spoke, you didn't say anything because you wanted to know what he was. He kind of kept his cards close to his chest and only played them when he thought it was really important to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is kind of they're definitely big shoes to fill, and I mean we all stand on the shoulders of giants, right? That kind of cliche.
Yeah, I think of Arthur Muse as a mountain named after him.
Exactly.
And had a mountain named after him when he was alive.
Which is
unheard of.
Yeah, like that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. But once you know Arthur, he certainly wasn't a mountain of a man in stature, but he was a mountain of a man in character. So, and those guys, they all were. The Dohertys, the Hastings, the Arthur Muses of that day. The guys that went before us made an impression on their community, made an impression on their state. We stand on the shoulders of giants, absolutely.
That's for sure. I mean, how often was it in your career that, someone would end up talking about like the old game wardens and stuff like that? And I mean, not talking about the game warden that covered it before you, but 30, 40 years prior to your arrival.
There's more Arthur Muse stories out there. It's unbelievable to hear them. And it's always out of like thin air, Arthur appears. Right. And I'm like, when you hear the first story, you kind of shake it off. But after about the third or the fourth or the fifth story, you're like, wow, that man was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just had a good way about him, I think, and knew how to handle people, which was huge.
Well, when you hear stories about those, like, say, Arthur's character from all walks of life, not just, an upstanding, somewhat what you'd consider an upstanding citizen, maybe somebody that was like a well-known poacher, and be like, yeah, he caught me, but he's a real decent guy about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and kind of...
I never held a grudge unless you did.
Yeah.
So I could turn around and I can shake very many people's hands that I have written tickets to and arrested. So.
Oh yeah.
The aim at the end of the day is to change the behavior.
And that's what I think, to me, and I don't remember which one of the training officers I had as a trainee that said it, maybe it is everybody, but a successful end to a case is no matter what you're charging them with the person with, if they're shaking your hand at the end of it. I mean, they don't have to, you don't have to, but if they offer a handshake, even though you just wrote them a ticket where they're going to maybe lose their license, and if you did the right thing and they think you did the right thing and you treat them well, I've had plenty of handshakes at the end of an interaction where it's going to hurt them walking away with it, but they realize that they're caught doing wrong, and and they
hopefully
understand.
You change that behavior so you don't catch them again.
Exactly. So that's kind of the goal in the end of it, and that's the good and the bad reactions. It's like what make this career, I can tell you. And I've only been on 3 years, and it's
3 years.
Yeah.
Time flies. Had any good wildlife cases in that 3 years? It stands out in your head?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of...
Maybe someone you worked with or something. I tried to get you a night hunting case, so
Oh, I know.
Everybody else in the district has made a night hunting case with me except for you.
Exactly.
I worked hard at it, but I wasn't successful. So.
We're trying. We're trying hard. I mean, it's still...
Yeah, you were my only failure.
God, Wayne.
So, everybody else I made cases with. So,
well, we really only ended up having one deer season together, so...
Right.
Everybody else had how many with you? At least Eric had like 5.
That's right, and then the first day in the district, he got a night hunting case, so...
Which is impressive.
I thought I could do that with you, but no.
Oh, we're trying to go for it, that's for sure. I mean...
Well, we certainly worked hard at it, there's no doubt about it. And night hunting cases aren't like they were years and years ago. They are few and far between, but they're still probably the biggest case that we do because I think we have the biggest effect on it. So because wildlife's so vulnerable at night and can be easily preyed upon by a poacher.
Exactly.
So I think that's why we try to protect those animals at night as much as we can.
It's really evolved too. The violation and the way the poacher does it.
And the technology is evolving too. So I'm planning on Jamie Woodward. I'm going to have a podcast with him regarding the technology. And Jamie runs the archery department at LL Cody's in Errol, New Hampshire. And he's been around forever and be a good one to talk about the technology and crossbows, night vision. There's all kinds of new stuff that's becoming affordable.
Exactly.
It's been around when I was around, but it wasn't affordable.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, your average Joe couldn't buy it. Now the average Joe wants to shell out $3 or $4 grand. He can do pretty good. He can do really well. Yeah. And the smart poacher, the ones that we are very difficult to catch, but that we look for, it's like that 12-point buck, Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the guy that understands that it's getting harder, and we need to. And some of the hunters, always how can you be a hunter and not work all of hunting season basically? And I'm like, yeah, the 12-point buck is the poacher you mount on the wall. Exactly. We're very much like you guys. We're very much driven like you guys. We just have a different prey. Yeah, very, very different. And it's harder to pattern some of them. Some of them it's really easy. You're like, this is their calling card. This is what they do. They've been caught a million times. But some of them, you're like, they don't even have a history. You never see them. And you don't even know who they are. Yeah. So you don't even hear rumors because they know what they're doing. Right. One of the investigations, and it's not wildlife related, but I don't think a lot of people understand that we do a lot of landowner issues too. And that illegal trail that you ended up investigating that had bridges on the national forest and had all kinds of things. That's a pretty interesting. That if you want to talk about that a little and give how we protect landowners too, because that's part of our job. Certainly. I mean, essentially this one, and it actually was found during hunting season, more or less because of hunting season. It was on a piece of property that was posted with a power line going through it. There's an individual that had written permission to hunt on that land, and he's up there and he heard all sorts of racket, like hammers and everything like that, and he didn't think anything of it. He thought that it was maybe the power line crew or gas line crew working, and he was up there another day and he decided to go investigate, and he found bridges and some people there working on them, and he knew whose property it was because he was on it, and he knew the property line, and he questioned him, like, why do you have permission to do this? What's going on here? And the violators said, well, I'm building a snowmobile trail and I have permission. Or he's like, you definitely do not have permission. And essentially this person was trying to build a snowmobile trail, a rogue one, that would connect where he had written permission to ride to another location. And it actually started kind of in the national forest, and then was going to cut across numerous landowners, and then also cross Route 110 in Stark, which had also been illegal to do because you need to get permission from the DOT. So when I heard about this, I walked up in, and they described it. And when you hear about someone making a trail and bridges, you think like a few pallets laid on a brook. Yep. You're like, oh, whatever. I'm going to go in there, and there's going to be some pallets, and I'll investigate it. I might find who it is, but it's going to be something that'll warrant a ticket, but it's probably not going to be anything huge. And I get in there, and there's 3 bridges,
and they use like those wooden I-beams to construct them. So they're like 12 feet wide.
This is a serious bridge.
Serious bridge. The biggest one was 50 feet long.
50.
50
Wow.
feet.
Wow.
And this individual obviously built this over like a couple week period. So this person had
I think the
of
length of
time.
my house is 48. I mean, that's
It's,
wow.
You think about it, you're like, that's impressive.
It's very impressive.
It's a lot of work. That's a lot of
What
money.
do you think in monetary value to build that bridge 50 feet long was?
God, I just materials. I think it was probably approaching like the $1,500-$1,600 range
Jeez.
to do that.
Yeah, for that one bridge, and then he did more, plus all the labor.
All the labor, and then going
All
in there.
illegally.
All illegally, yeah. Operate with using like a side-by-side to get the material out there.
Can you imagine being the landowner and walking out and seeing this trail, the Taj Mahal of trails,
right?
50-foot bridge on your land? I'd be like, huh?
You're like, what? Wait a minute. Like, let's just put it this way, Wayne. It was so well built. I had to ask the clubs if they were making a trail up there because it looked like a club trail.
Wow.
I'm like, what's going on here? I did a lot of. I tracked down everything, looked for anyone that had a reason to be there, and couldn't find anything. And ended up through a lot of questioning and figuring this out. I ended up tracking down who built it, and then that investigation led me into going to a bunch of different hardware stores and locating the where he bought the materials, and pretty much getting a receipt for all these materials, which I could go on the receipt and see all this, like, carriage bolts, lag bolts, this type of wood, that type of wood, these wooden I-beams.
You imagine up the material list of what was there?
Oh, yeah. It's pretty much matched identical to it. Even to, like, the drill bits that are used for, the diameter of, like, the carriage bolts and the lag bolts.
Wow.
That all matched up, and
I remember it was a very detailed investigation.
it was definitely lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
It was good, though. It was satisfying because I ended up pulling the National Forest into it, too, which you mentioned, is because one of the bridges was on the National Forest, besides the fact that he was operating all the way across it. I don't know the exact...
And people can be charged by the state and by the Fed. Similar violations are the same violation.
Exactly.
So I don't think people understand that when they break federal rules. That's a whole different game. We may have the same state rule, but they can get charged by the state and by the federal government.
That's right. Exactly. And I don't think people quite grasp that concept. And, you can't... Some people will say, I can do all this stuff on federal land, say in, like, the West or something. It's like, well, this is a very different kind of federal land. The National Forest, unless you have permission or it's a trail, you can't operate any motorized vehicles. So we also have a lot more population surrounding it. And I think the National Forest, last I heard, gets like 6 or 7 million visitors a year.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's used, and to some extent, in some locations, it's definitely abused. But, this one ended up working with the landowner. I located this individual, went there with the local... the law enforcement officer for the National Forest, did some interviews. The guy was very open. He was very reasonable with us. I mean, we had him pretty much dead to rights on it. We knew who was up there. I had all the evidence that he bought these supplies and materials. He worked with me. Ultimately, I charged him on filling and dredging of wetlands because he had to put these uprights to hold the bridge up, this 50-foot by 12-foot bridge up there. So he had to put these posts in the river and, kind of divert the water a little bit and all this kind of stuff. And that's under forest and land law. That's filling and dredging, which can be a misdemeanor. Because of his cooperation, we worked with him.
And that's the main thing with any case. If people work with us, we'll work with them.
Exactly.
These aren't the crimes of the century, usually. And it's when they start lying, you start digging yourself a hole, and then we catch you in those lies, and that makes it worse.
Much
Generally,
worse.
people that say, I messed up, and how can we resolve this?
Yeah,
we try to work with them.
we'll do what we can. We can't make it go away, but we can at least
Right.
make it less painful.
Right. And then working with the landowners, because that's so important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is pure landowner relations, and I mean...
Yeah, we have full-time positions for that, landowner relations, you know.
Exactly.
Because it's so important to work with the landowner to keep land open for hunting, for fishing, for wildlife. Yeah, so that piece there. That's kind of why
huge.
I brought this whole case up, Jim, because that's an essential part of being a game warden, is that liaison, so to speak, with landowners and trying to keep all that stuff open. So
Yeah. I mean, that's...
And what a heck of a job you did on that case.
It was good. It was satisfying. I mean, I'm satisfied even with, like, the stuff that when it violates right in front of you, but there's something special about you do the investigation and you have to... you track stuff down over a period of time, and it ends up pointing you in the direction, and you see it all the way through. And with this one, we got it worked out where the landowner was pretty happy with how I was handling it, and as it was left, he was going to actually donate those bridges that are built on his property to one of the local clubs.
Yeah.
The guys' work didn't go to waste, and it's not like it's just going to be used for firewood or something. And it's supposedly supposed to be getting used for a trail system. It all comes around kind of full circle, and when you can make it full circle, that's what matters, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when you can get a conclusion for a landowner. I mean, that's also satisfying.
Because you have a victim.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a victimless crime. There's a victim involved here.
Exactly, and that was a good one. I really like that, and and I have some that I'm working on right now. Several actually I'm working on right now. I'm waiting for a conclusion on everything.
Yeah, because these things don't happen overnight. These are sometimes long-term investigations.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I have a dumping case from last September that I'm still waiting on information from a credit card company for through a warrant and everything like that. And that's a long process.
Yeah. It's something else that we take seriously, and it's funny because certain officers take it more seriously than others. Matt Holmes is kind of got a reputation for digging through trash and finding who dumped it, and taking it very seriously and doing everything he can to get those people that dump trash, because that's, hates it so much, and it's his forte. He's very good at it.
Very good at it. I've learned a few things from him, and I know I'm going to learn some more.
Yeah, no, and those are great things to hand on, because it's the same thing with a deer investigation, a moose investigation, a bear investigation. Mm-hmm. Fundamentals are the same.
They really are.
And that's good to keep your skills honed to that, too.
Yeah, you'll keep some interviewing going on.
And in New Hampshire, we don't have a special investigation unit or an investigation unit. You're it. You're the detective. You're everything.
Yeah, you're the foot patrol.
You're the prosecutor. Yeah.
You're everything.
Which works out well, I think, because you're all those things. You can curtail it to what you need to and make decisions based on that. So I think it's a good system. When I talk to people, sometimes it's overwhelming when you get attorneys involved and you're answering motions and stuff like that. But I know a lot of other police officers that don't have as much say, wish they had more say when it came to this. Yeah, so definitely neat.
And I think knowing we have to prosecute our own cases and everything, I think it also aids in giving us a reputation of if we ever have to do some real high-level thing where we bring in, like, the county attorney, like, we know what's expected and what's needed for prosecution, so we don't leave stones unturned.
Yes, the most thorough investigation I ever saw given to the county attorney was your case. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and it was because you were new. He gave you that list of everything he wanted, and you wanted to put everything on that list, where I would have been like, yeah, he doesn't need that, he doesn't need that, he doesn't need that. So, hey, here's your file, county attorney, that's it. But I think you checked off everything on his list. He even said to me, he's like, I've never had anything like this before. which was an awesome, what was it, 3 inches thick.
Oh, it's
on
huge.
A serious bodily injury, ATV accident, right?
Yep, with DUI.
With DUI.
And,
where the guy actually shoved his shoulder into a tree and there was still flesh on the tree left, wasn't there?
Exactly. It was. I'm glad that individual lived, but God forbid if he hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
So, this is something that we don't take lightly. It's not, I'll just walk away from it kind of thing. Like, we follow it to the end.
Right.
And it's...
And you did. You did. Other officers would be like, I couldn't get that. And I would have been like, yep. So he doesn't expect you to get that. But no, you got everything. And I was wondering what was taking so long. I mean, several times I'd ask you, hey, Jim, where's this? Where's that? Yeah, I'm working on it. Yeah, and when you came and it was 3 inches thick, I'm like, holy moly, I guess you worked on it. So, and the county attorney thought the same. He's like, I have never had such a thorough investigation done. So I'm like, that's because he's new.
That's right.
And he said, I hope he continues on.
And from that feedback, I'm like, well, I'm going to make sure I try to meet that level again or exceed it. I don't,
yes.
It's...
you gave him everything he needed, and which made his job so much easier. When they start arguing this and arguing that, he can pull out all this information and say, yeah, it's not exactly how it happened, and here is how it is because I have a sworn affidavit from here. So,
yeah.
No, good work on that case for sure.
That was another good one that was really satisfying. I mean, those cases, fortunately, it went on for a year, but some other guys in the similar cases will go on 3-4 years. But luckily it got a conclusion, and for instance, like on that scene investigation the day after, I probably spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours there doing measurements, it was a Sunday. So, there's other calls going on. I think there's another crash. I think Matt went to for me because I was trying to document it while some evidence was still there.
And you got to why it's still there, because once that's gone, it's gone.
It's gone. Nothing you can do.
So spend all the time you can with that scene. Get all the information. My lieutenant, when I started, Eric Stoll, take as many pictures as you can. Just pictures like crazy, because you can look back on them. That scene's going to be gone. So just take all the evidence you can, and then more.
Exactly. You can't have too much.
No.
And you never know. There might be something where...
And then you end up in a court 3 years later, and you can fall back onto that thorough investigation, and you're going to look really good because it's not, I don't remember, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. It's here it is, there it is, and it just makes for a solid case.
It really does. And you can... I feel like if you document it like crazy, and then if as a CEO, it's like, I present that, it's like my name's on it forever. If anybody looks at it down the road for any reason, like, well, this is what he has. I want to maintain that reputation.
Absolutely.
It's really in the end of the day. Yeah, all you got is your reputation.
That's right, and we've taken some of these snowmobile and ATV accidents where we've had the crime lab come up and remove fibers from cowlings of snowmobiles and ATVs in order to make a case where the guy got struck or something like that, and it's pretty intense. But good investigations, good prosecutions, but once it gets to that county attorney level, it's out of our hands. So everything we provide to them is just essential. Exactly.
And it's, and then while you're in the midst of it, I feel like you're so involved and, overtaken by it. But then when you're done, you're like, well, I was actually I enjoyed that. It was a good time. And
you hate it while you have it and while you're doing it because it is overwhelming. But when in the end, you can sit back and you go, wow. That was a good job.
Yeah, exactly.
Sit back and smoke your pipe like your grandfather used to.
That's right. Yeah. Go not say much and then kind of look into the distance and have something slow and concise and leave it at that.
Absolutely. The other thing I think you get used on a lot is the search and rescue aspect. Does any specific search and rescue stand out in your mind? Because I know you're healthy, you're fit, the mountains. You were one of my first or second calls when it comes to search and rescue because of your reliability and your experience. So in 3 years, you've probably done a lot.
I've done quite a few. Sometimes I think like maybe I should keep track of them just because. It'd be interesting.
It would be.
Yeah.
I'd like to know at the end because I didn't keep track of them, and maybe in your diary it's probably written down, and probably in my diaries, but it's
somewhere.
It goes so much, 5 calls at night, and I'd cure 3 or 4 of them at home. But a lot of search and rescue.
A lot of them.
You know, any stand out?
I'm trying to think. I think there was. There's a bunch that before I was on the job, but then there's been a few since I've been on. One of which was last summer. 2 older folks were out. It was at the end of a long hot spell in July, like around 4th of July, where it's like 100 degrees every day. And then we got this hard rain like we're getting right now, as driven by a cold
all that
front.
background noise everybody's hearing.
All that, that kind of staticky noise.
Yeah.
The temperature plummeted after the rain, and so we actually just got done with a rescue it was more of an assist. Nobody was injured, thankfully, but a rescue again in Huntington Ravine where they got cliffed out, and Sergeant Lucas and I were down in there, and we got down to him and assisted him out. I'd cleared it and was heading back north, and got the notification from state police that there's some other people that were high on the mountain, probably at like I'm guessing it's probably about the 55 or 5,200 foot level. They'd been out and they were hypothermic.
And what time of year is this?
This is July.
And people don't think about hypothermia in July.
No.
But they should.
They should. They very much should. And you mentioned it snowing.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't snow this night, but I thought it was going to come close.
It probably did come close.
Very close. If it was still raining, we would have had it, because I think it was 30 or 31 degrees.
It's in July.
And the wind was gusting to 80, I believe. And this is very much above tree line.
And how were these folks dressed?
Like it was July.
Like it was July.
Like it was July.
Shorts?
So shorts, yeah. Shorts, and didn't have a bunch of warm clothing. Had some, but not a ton.
And cotton?
Yes, some cotton in there too. That adage, cotton kills. It's true. And,
yes.
It doesn't matter if you have 15 cotton hoodies on. It's not going to keep you warm if they're wet.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how many layers of it. So, one was mild to moderate hypothermia. The other one was definitely severe, unconscious.
Wow.
That's very
life or death
borderline.
situation.
Very much so. Oh, yeah, very much so. We had rescuers actively trying to rewarm that person. We ended up bringing down a what's called a Norwegian heater from the summit, which many people probably aren't familiar, but look it up. It's I think it's developed in World War II.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And it looks like they're from World War II.
Yep, it looks like they're from World War II, no doubt. They have like a charcoal fuel type cell that you actually set on fire, basically, and it goes through this tubing and heats, basically.
Pretty much.
Creates heat. So, yeah.
It's like a heating octopus is the best way to look like. You know, use the battery and stuff, and
of course, the Norwegians figured it out. The Swiss, Norwegians, that whole area in Europe. They're all about snowology.
Very much snowology. In fact, that's Switzerland's the only other place besides Montana State that has. So
you had a choice to go to Switzerland, huh?
Yeah.
You didn't jump on that one,
no,
huh?
I didn't.
Did you look into it at all?
I think a little bit. I think I actually talked to an advisor that was. He was like my advisor's head of the department. He's like, I've known a few students that have done like a year abroad, but the programs don't exactly align, so you end up having to take a little bit more classes and a little bit more time in school.
In Sweden, that would be horrible, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I was like, it'd be terrible to be
terrible in Sweden and extra classes
all over the place.
Yeah.
So, but now I was like, I only knew a little bit.
You should have gone just a visit to see what a classroom in Sweden's like. You're probably on the edge of the Alps, as your classroom. So.
Yeah, it's Swiss Alps with the.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's in Bern, Switzerland. It's so you have like lakes, and it's
gorgeous. That's what I think of Switzerland. I just think of gorgeous.
Just pure.
Well, I got to find out if they got game wardens in Switzerland.
They've got to.
They have to.
Yeah, it's
that'll be a podcast.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully, I can do it live.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, do it live on scene.
Yes, no, be awesome.
How else are you going to capture it unless you're there?
So
Yeah.
did you end up calling a helicopter for this hypothermia person?
Yeah, no. So and that's the other good
Wow.
point to bring up is it's the wind and everything was so bad that obviously they can't do it up there, as you know. But like, ended up going to the hospital in Berlin, AVH, and I don't recall the core temperature of the person that was worse off, but if I recall, the doctor that was in charge of that patient, I guess I heard it secondhand that this doctor worked in Alaska, and she said that's the farthest or the coldest temperature she's seen in a person that ended up surviving. So that was very
If I
much.
recall, I thought the victim stayed in the hospital for over a week.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For hypothermia.
Hypothermia. Yeah, when you get that cold, it does some not very pretty things to the human body.
Right.
It can disrupt your heart, and that's a real. When it gets real cold, granted, we're carrying this person up, and we carried the other person up too as well because they weren't moving very fast, and pretty much ended up getting to the base of the mountain at I want to say 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
So we saw sunset and sunrise on that one between the two rescues. So,
Wow. That's a day.
That's a day right there. And I think we had two more like that. Not that bad, not that life or death, but we had two more all-nighters in July. That was part of it. I think there's one on my weekend off, too.
And that was always my fear as a lieutenant. You have those back-to-back, and then the next day or the next night you have one, and how many more people do you have to do it?
Exactly.
You don't have people, and your people are spent, and you gotta think of your people.
Yeah, you're beat. And it's not like we're working night shift and
Right.
just slept all day. I mean, I just put in probably a
Right.
12-hour day before I went on the first one. So,
Yep.
there's a lot to it. And I think a lot of people, I mean, they have no reason to know, but if it comes up and they, I'll gladly educate them, be like, we're not night shift. This is,
No,
we're
out
coming
here.
out for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just, help
Yep.
you get down off the mountain or give you Gatorade and a headlamp. This is,
Right.
we're here because you need to get out.
Right. This is serious, and that's why we come out when it's serious. So
Exactly. So that was probably one of my more memorable ones. Then another one that was, it wasn't super dire, but there's a woman that was the one in Ammonoosuc.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that we ended up.
me and Lieutenant Ober talked about this one too. But
yeah.
that was an intense.
That was an intense one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, chasing PLS beacon hits
Yep.
down the drainage, and Ober and I going in from above.
Yeah. So these satellite beacons, for everybody that knows, a spot system or personal locator beacon.
Yeah.
We chase them because sometimes they're not deployed correctly. They need to be perfectly correct, and there's a lot of variables when it comes to those, so they're not a fail-safe. But she activated that one, and it was a spot system, which is, would be my preference if we had one to have a spots. Maybe I will get spots on here to sponsor me
Sponsor
now
you.
because I do have a preference.
That's right. Oh, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys will hate me if I do that because everybody will be carrying a spots and you'll be going out to calls every time. So.
Oh, yeah, I bumped it when I was getting my peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yes, and that happens.
Yeah, exactly. No, the PLB's moving at
yes.
about 2 miles per hour. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
And when the Air Force gets involved, because with the personal locator beacons, it goes right to the Air Force, they get all nerved up because they have to clear that system. And, one day it went off in the parking lot of Pinkham Notch.
Oh, jeez.
So, and then they track the person all the way up the mountain, and they're all, they don't even understand what's going on, but they're like, yep, it's here. And I'm getting calls like every 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, they're hiking Mount Washington. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, it started in their parking lot, so it got, and so up at the park on top, they put a sign up for the person because it has a name.
Yeah.
Put it right on as soon as you open the door, sorry, please report to the thing. So they went in. They're like, oh yeah, we tried that. We wanted to see if it worked in the parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked all right.
Yeah.
But I could figure it out, and they wanted me to go out and rescue this person. I'm like, no, they're hiking the mountain.
No, I'm not doing
So
that.
it's you got to discern from that stuff. So, but that one, I mean, let's talk about that rescue from your perspective, because that was, again, a very gnarly overnight one, and lots of snow.
Yeah, a lot of snow.
Winter one.
Oh, wicked. I mean, we got... Yeah, that's... So, I remember distinctively because we had gotten snow like all December long, a ton of it, and I think even late November a little bit, but then we had like a 2-week cold snap, and I mean cold, in the end of December and in the beginning of January, where it was like 30 below in the valleys at night.
Yeah.
And then luckily it started warming up, and that's when this occurred. And I remember going up through with snowshoes and everything, and I mean the trail itself was very well traveled, as it usually is. But then we get above Treeline, and that's where Lieutenant Ober had located the tracks going off the trail towards the drainage, because he's trying to cut some. And when we, you could see it was like a point of no return. He was there ahead of me, and so he was waiting for me. I got up there, we got on the snowshoes and pitched down over into it. And it's like, this, you just have it run through your mind all the different potential scenarios that we might be coming across. Like, is this person alive? I mean, it's been now since it was activated, like what, probably 4 or 5 hours by the time we got into the drainage and cut a track. Yeah. Because there's no button that I know of on any spots model or that says, oh, I'm bad, I need help, but I'm surviving right now, and there's not a button that says get here as fast as possible or I'm not going to live. There's no discerning which kind of emergency it is. Point in case, pressing it to test it.
Exactly.
So, and up in there, you have what we call tree wells, where you get so much snow that it covers spruce, and you might fall in like a 10-foot deep hole, and maybe it'll bury you, or you're struggling so much.
And then Sergeant Ober fell in those too.
Exactly.
You let him blaze the trail and fall in there. Several times.
When I say let him blaze a trail, he kind of he's a born leader. Let's put it that way. He takes charge.
He breaks great trail. He wanted to stay breaking trail, I think, a lot. Oh yeah, no, and I mean, for those that are unfamiliar, I mean, we're carrying like 60, 65 pound packs. It's January. Yeah. All the equipment to keep you alive and the person you're looking for.
And then even help any other rescuers that are there too, since we're responsible for everybody, which is always a common thing, a theme that we always get kind of teased about by our counterparts in the volunteer rescue groups that are very knowledgeable and really good resources, but it's like, you guys have such big packs. Why is it always so heavy? You're torturing yourselves. It's like, well, I'm carrying stuff for a few people.
That's right.
Yeah. And I always, pretty much, depending on the length, this time of year, and like winter and fall, it's like I always have a sleeping bag and a bivy sack in my pack, probably a stove.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that was...
And you guys ended up finding Amy. It started raining.
Yep.
I was waiting at the trailhead for you, because when we do search and rescues, there's always a command person at the bottom doing radio relays, and if anything you need, calling an ambulance in that case. And yeah, that was a great success. And but it could have ended up just like the other hypothermia victim that you talked about earlier.
Exactly.
That was where she was on her way, and she understood. She made the decision. But she lost the ridgeline as she's coming down. She lost the trail in some weather and just picked a ravine to go down and picked the wrong ravine. Yep.
The good thing is she's, I think what I noticed is people that have like a kind of a fighting spirit, really, that makes a difference. Obviously, aside from having the knowledge and equipment to do so, but whether you go, well, I'm not going to give up here and I keep pushing forward. I mean, she's going to try to get herself out. Even after I think she initiated that, she was trying to move down the drainage, because we're falling like...
She knew if you get to the bottom of the drainage, you're probably going to get to a road.
Exactly.
So follow the river down, follow the drainage down. So it's just difficult in up to 10 feet of snow at times, or deeper.
Exactly. And she even had at least the skills enough and had the equipment to start a little fire.
Exactly. Yep.
And that...
If I had to critique her, the only one thing I'd say is have a GPS, because the GPS would have put her back on the trail.
Exactly.
She had her spots, but she didn't have a GPS that would actually see where she was on a map and see where the trail was and put herself on that. And I told her that, so critique, I bet you she has it now, knowing her, because she had all the equipment really to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, she did, and I think...
She made good decisions.
She did.
And she was very happy, thankful for us.
Very thankful.
Which was nice.
Which is, it's... Most of the time, it's kind of... I'd say probably more than 60% of the time, people are kind of just indifferent to our presence. They're just kind of like... Mostly probably because they're in pain or embarrassed. They might not say anything. It's very rare that I get someone that's like a jerk.
Right.
That's probably like 1 out of every 20.
Yep.
Yeah. And
we get them.
We get them, though. And then there's probably, like 10% or 15% of them I feel are super grateful. Granted, none of us do it to get like thanks or awards or this, that, or the other thing, but
it's nice.
It's nice every once in a while to be like, I'm helping people. That's why I do this. And, and they appreciated me carrying them on my back, which that's another memorable one. I mean, we're about to, I'm sure we're going to wrap up on this one. This specific recording.
Is that the one I actually went out on?
Well,
that's
there's
another
that one.
There's that one. Okay.
That's another one. That was a rough one. But then there's one that I had.
When the lieutenant ends up on the rescue and he's so angry.
Exactly.
Because he can't get any help.
That's right. And we have dishwashers and stuff coming in to help. Albeit they're very helpful.
Yeah.
There's
nothing. Been wicked helpful.
Wicked helpful. But there's another one in the Mahoosucs last summer that we could get fairly close by 4-wheeler, but it's by like bushwhacking on the old logging roads to Page Pond.
Yep.
And then we carried the injured person who broke his ankle on our back, like kind of like a backpack, like a human backpack through the woods.
Yeah,
and,
that's great.
Yeah.
That's one way to get it done, though. So
it really is.
Yep, piggybacks, crutches, you name it. We've done about everything.
Try everything.
So we're at the end of our journey here. We're going to be changing up to get into our dress reds for the Law Enforcement Memorial, where we honor our fallen. So
it's good. If it turns out, I think this would be a pretty good canned conversation. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're basically everybody's riding shotgun with you today. So because I'm sitting here and they're going to hear the road noise, they're going to hear the rain falling, they're going to hear the radio in the background. So I hope they get that feeling of on patrol with Conservation Officer Jim Cyrs.
Yes, exactly.
Please join me, Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and other game wardens on our adventures protecting wildlife, saving lives, and having fun, all while serving the public and the natural resources of our planet. Listen to the tales and experiences of those who work in the outdoors while being entertained with stories about encounters with poachers, wildlife investigation, murder investigation, near-death experiences, search and rescue missions, wildlife interactions from game wardens around the country and around the world. When I retired, I realized I couldn't let go of that legacy, but rather wanted to share the passion, the commitment, and the stories of those men and women that call themselves game wardens. This is Game Warden Wayne Saunders, and this is Warden's Watch.